So what happens when a value you hold dear, something like loyalty, crashes head-on with the mission of your entire company? We're going to dive into a really tense situation involving a media publisher, his absolute belief in free speech, and the president of the Philippines who's right in the crosshairs.
You can just feel the tension in that line, can't you? It's from an open letter by Franco Mabanta, the owner of a media network called PGMN. He's about to hit publish on something that is clearly tying him up in knots, because it's a direct shot at a man he used to work for.
And that's really the big question we're tackling here. What on earth could be in this episode that would push a publisher into a corner like this? Well, the answer is a fascinating clash of principles, personal history, and some incredibly serious accusations.
Okay, so to really get what's happening, we have to understand the battle going on inside Mabanta's head. It's a classic tug of war. Personal feelings on one side, professional principles on the other.
This slide just lays it all out perfectly. On the left, you've got his personal loyalty. He calls it a defining trait. And yeah, he has a working history with the president. But on the right, you've got the entire reason his company, PGMN, exists, to protect absolute free speech, no matter what. You can see how something's got to give.
So what exactly is PGMN? Well, Mabanta built it specifically to push back against what he calls the censorship industrial complex. He saw what he considered a hideously authoritarian woke movement on social media and decided to create an alternative.
And this quote from Elon Musk, this is pretty much their guiding star. Mabanta said this idea was a huge inspiration, and it became the network's whole mission to give a platform to all viewpoints, especially the ones that really get under your skin. Because if you can't do that, what's the point, right?
And they really seem to walk the walk. I mean, just look at the list of people Mabanta says works for him. You've got everyone from MAGA supporters to liberal pinks and Duterte loyalists all under one roof. The one thing that supposedly brings them all together? The freedom to speak their minds.
But here's where it gets even more complicated. This wasn't always an adversarial relationship. In fact, Mabanta points out a time when he and the president were totally on the same page, fighting against a sex ed bill. He even called the president's veto his favorite moment of the entire presidency. That shared history just makes this current fight that much more intense.
Okay, now let's get to the heart of it, the actual content of the episode, the thing that's causing all this uneasiness and discomfort.
The person at the center of all this is PGMN's newest anchor, Attorney Rowena Guanzon. Mabanta himself described her critique of the president as, and I quote, direct, ferocious, and unapologetic.
And ferocious is right. Her allegations are absolutely explosive. She straight up accuses the president of cocaine addiction. She slams his handling of the economy, talking about the high prices of rice and sugar. She says his foreign policy is all over the place and even claims his family is involved in corruption.
And she doesn't beat around the bush at all. This is the raw question she puts out there in her broadcast. No hinting, no implications. She just puts the most damaging allegation front and center and demands an answer. You can see why Mabanta said it made him recoil.
But Guanzon doesn't just throw these accusations out there and walk away. Nope. She offers a very specific, very public challenge for the president to, as she puts it, end the speculation once and for all.
So what does she want? It's not just a vague call for a drug test. She is incredibly specific about the method, and there's a really good reason for that.
She is demanding a hair follicle test. Now, what is that? It's simply a type of drug test where they analyze a small sample of your hair to see if there's any evidence of drug use.
So here's why the type of test is so important. Guanzon argues that a standard urine test, that's easy to cheat. You just have to stop using for about a week and it won't show up. But a hair follicle test, as you can see here, has a way longer detection window. We're talking up to 3 months or even more. She claims that makes it basically impossible to fake. That's why she's insisting on it.
Which brings us right back to Franco Mabanta, sitting there having to decide whether to publish this episode with all these heavy accusations and this direct challenge to the president of the country.
And in the end, this is what it all came down to for him. Despite his personal feelings, despite the discomfort, he decided that the principle of free speech, the very foundation of his company, was just more important. To back down now, he felt, would be a massive hypocrisy.
He also frames it in a really personal way, almost as a lesson for his kids. He says he made the choice so that one day his sons could look back and see that their dad was the kind of guy who stuck to his principles no matter how tough it got.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about, doesn't it?
This whole situation really highlights the tension between a platform's promise of total free expression and the huge responsibility that comes with making accusations against a world leader. It's a debate about principles, power, and ultimately where we as a society decide to draw that line.